The first thing I noticed was my neighbor's stare. It wasn't suspicious at first, just a long, hard look while I was taking out the trash. I waved, but she didn't wave back. Her hand was clamped around the curtain. I felt it in my gut. Something was off. This town used to feel small, friendly. Everybody knew everybody's dogs. But now, I crossed the street and people looked away too quickly. My mailman didn't say a word, just slid the envelopes through the slot like he couldn't get away fast enough. I called my brother after work just to hear a normal voice. I told him about the vibe in town. He laughed, told me I needed sleep. But when I mentioned the food, how it tasted weird lately, metal tang, nothing felt right, he got quiet. Said maybe it was my meds, or maybe the city pipes. But I know the taste of copper. I started eating canned stuff only, but even the beans tasted like something was wrong. My tongue went numb sometimes. That was before the news vans showed up. Not the big ones, not like CNN or FOX, but the cheap local ones. They parked at the ends of streets and filmed nothing. The anchors looked scared. No one gave clear updates, just vague warnings about water supplies and routine quarantines. The town's cops set up a roadblock at the old bridge. Next day, they all vanished. The only thing left was a police vest, covered in blood, hanging on the stop sign. The air changed too. Not just the tension, but the literal air. Smelled like burnt pennies or hot wires frying. I taped up my windows thinking it'd help. I called my mom, told her to stay inside. She said she would, but I heard voices in her house arguing in the background. People here started locking their doors in daylight. I heard hammering at midnight, somebody putting up boards. We used to have block parties every July. Now nobody even wanted to answer the door for the mailman. Then came the banging. It started with a thump at the back of my house. Not loud, just steady, like someone knocking slow. I yelled, and it stopped. The next night, it was louder. The third night, someone banged so hard the picture frame in my bedroom fell and shattered. I looked outside but didn't see anyone. I texted my friend Mason, who lives 2 blocks over. He didn't answer. I called, straight to voicemail. I checked his Instagram. Last post was 3 days ago. A selfie at the gas station, smiling with a Slurpee. His comments were all bots, nobody real. The worst part? I started to recognize the faces banging at my door. The gym teacher from high school. The lady who used to run the nail salon. Their eyes all wrong, black and shining, unblinking. I stopped sleeping. I started keeping a baseball bat next to my bed. Every sound made me flinch. My phone glowed with emergency alerts, but they all said the same thing. Shelter in place. Do not trust others. But it's hard not to trust people you've known your whole life. That's what makes it worse. You want to believe you're all in this together, but you see your neighbor walking circles in her yard, muttering to herself, dragging a shovel behind her. You see kids running down the street in pajamas, screaming for help, and you want to open the door, but you don't. Because whatever's happening, it started with people, not monsters. And I think I'm next. I woke up to glass shattering downstairs. I grabbed the bat before I was fully conscious. My legs shook as I crept toward the staircase, the air thick and hot like the inside of a toaster. My phone was dead. I felt the walls with my hand, trying to keep quiet. When I saw the shadow in the kitchen, I swung first and aimed for the head. The sound was different than I expected, a sick, hollow crack. My old friend Mason fell, twitching. One eye rolled back and the other staring at me. He was making that same low groan I'd heard outside the night before. I stood over him, shaking, telling myself I had no choice, but it didn't feel like survival. It felt like murder. The next hour was a blur. I dragged his body out the back, hands covered in his blood, barely able to breathe through the rising smoke. Someone must have set fire to the gas station a few blocks away. The sky glowed orange. People screamed out in the street. A woman was pounding on my door, screaming for help. I didn't open it. I kept replaying Mason's face, that mix of pain and hunger. That was the first kill, not the infected, not the monsters. My friend. I couldn't stay. I grabbed my dad's old backpack, filled it with whatever I could. I didn't even look at Mason again. I went out the back and cut through the yards, keeping low. Sirens were everywhere but going nowhere. When I got to the main road, I saw the grocery store on fire. People were fighting in the parking lot, real fighting, using bricks and bats, tearing each other up. I heard a woman laugh while a man begged for his life. It sounded like animals. I ducked behind a dumpster and waited for a break, holding my breath. The smoke was thick enough to sting my eyes. I pulled my shirt up over my mouth. Inside the burning store, I could see silhouettes throwing boxes through smashed windows, grabbing whatever food was left. The fire didn't stop them. It didn't stop the screaming. I ran for the alley, following the flickering shadows of people. Survivors, not monsters, running with their arms full of junk food and bleach. In the alley, I heard a radio blasting from a car. A voice, too calm, said, "Stay tuned for further instructions. The situation is under control. Emergency food rations will be distributed soon. Trust your local authorities." I stopped and listened. A woman inside the car was holding a walkie-talkie, her hand shaking so bad it kept smacking the dashboard. "They're lying," she whispered to whoever was on the other end. "The trucks aren't coming. They're rounding up survivors and putting them in the high school gym. I saw them take the kids." She looked at me, eyes red, face streaked with soot. "Don't trust the broadcast. Don't trust the people inside. They're using everyone as bait." I backed away, nearly tripping over a shopping cart. I wanted to ask more, but she slammed the car door and sped off. The broadcast was still playing from a dozen cars up and down the block, echoing through the chaos. "This is not a test. Remain calm. Follow all directions. Help is on the way." My stomach twisted. I needed food. I needed water. I needed to believe somebody out there was still honest. But every time I thought about Mason and about the woman in the car, I knew I was on my own. I ducked into another alley, hiding behind trash cans, and tried to catch my breath. That's when I heard footsteps behind me, slow, careful, like someone who knows how to sneak. I gripped the bat and turned, ready to swing, but it was Lisa from the library, face wild, hair matted with ash. She smiled at me like we were meeting for coffee. "I knew you'd make it," she said, and leaned in like she was going to hug me. Instead, she grabbed my bag, yanked it out of my hand, and punched me so hard my ears rang. "Sorry," she hissed, "but you're too soft." Then she ran, leaving me on the ground, bleeding from my lip, the bat just out of reach. I sat there, shaking, watching her disappear around the corner. My trust, whatever was left of it, went with her. In this town, the monsters had names and faces, and they weren't hiding anymore. The sun burned through the smoke like a spotlight searching for guilt. I wiped blood from my mouth, tasted dirt and copper, then forced myself up. Every window was smashed. I saw people crouched inside cars, eyes darting, clutching whatever they'd stolen. Nobody looked at each other. Nobody offered help. I didn't know where to go, but standing still was just waiting to die. I limped down the block with the bat and nothing else, trying not to think about Lisa or Mason or my own hands. I stole a water bottle from the open trunk of a sedan. A kid saw me and shouted, but his father grabbed his shoulder and shook his head. "Don't get involved." I kept going. I saw more bodies, some just sleeping rough, others who weren't going to wake up. At one corner, a woman flagged me down with a candy bar in her palm. When I reached for it, she snapped it away and pointed a kitchen knife at my gut. "Prove you're not sick," she hissed. I stepped back. She grinned, all teeth, and moved on to the next stranger. The gym at the high school was locked tight with chain and boards, but I could hear people screaming inside. Real panic, banging, begging. A group of men in hunting jackets patrolled the parking lot with bats and crowbars. When they saw me, they motioned me over. I tried to walk away, but they grabbed me, dragged me behind a dumpster. They checked my arms, my eyes, my teeth, laughing the whole time. "He's clean, but let's have some fun." One of them took my bat, cracked me on the knee with it, then asked if I wanted to join their little family. I said nothing, just stared at the gum stuck to my shoe, counting heartbeats. They debated what to do with me, keep me, rob me, dump me. One, the oldest, got in my face. "Trust gets you killed. Remember that." They tied my wrists with an extension cord and left me against the dumpster, saying they'd circle back. I gnawed the cord, my mouth full of dust, finally snapping free. I limped away, crawling on my knees, leaving a blood trail across the playground asphalt. I found a back window cracked open at the corner bakery. Inside was chaos. Shelves flipped, flour everywhere, two people screaming at each other over a pile of canned peaches. The smaller one turned on me with a rolling pin, ready to smash my skull. I screamed first, told them I was alone. They believed me, but only after frisking every pocket, making me strip to my underwear. In exchange for silence, they tossed me a can and told me to get lost. I wanted to beg for help. I wanted someone to care, just once. But nobody cared. Not anymore. When I staggered out, smoke poured from the roof of the hardware store. I watched from behind a car as a man with a bandaged head threw bottles through the window, pouring lighter fluid. "You all deserve it," he screamed at the crowd before flicking a match. People ran for cover, others cheered. Inside, someone was pounding on the glass, flames already licking the frames. It didn't matter if they were sick or not. No one went back for them. I ran, slipping through backyards, dodging stray dogs and desperate people. At the edge of town, I looked back. Every street was burning or empty or worse. I thought about my old life, my friends, my family. None of them were here. None of them would come back. I was alone again, but this time I wanted it. Because I finally understood. The monsters weren't outside, waiting to break in. They were us. They always were. If you're watching this, if you're hearing my story, trust nobody. If someone offers you help, question it. If you see someone you knew, remember, survival changes everyone. The scariest part of the apocalypse isn't what's out there. It's what you have to become. Don't trust the survivors in your town. They're not who you remember. If you found this story gripping, hit subscribe for more true nightmare tales. Share your survival stories in the comments. What would you do if you couldn't trust anyone? And stay safe out there. You never know who's really watching.